Hey, this is Chill from Team Liquid with a Zerg vs Terran strategical commentary. This is my second run at it, but the first one was just completely unacceptable. I missed a lot of stuff, and especially discussing the build order. So I'm going to take another run at it here. I want to say first off, thank you to everyone who responded to my thread about playing me for commentaries. The limiting factor in making these commentaries is actually finding decent games to record them on. It's not my just laziness to sit down and record the commentaries. So I got about 9-10 games out of that. I'm gonna release all those replays. Even though there's a lot of non-standard games in there and a lot of games that are over quickly, I'll still release them just in case people want to take a look at it. So I'm recording these out of order. This is one of the latter games I played, Zerg vs Terran on Bluestorm, but I'm recording it first because it's more of a standard game than the other one that I'm thinking about recording, which deals more about damage recovery and things like that. So I'm not even sure if I'm going to record that other one. If I do, you know, well, I guess we'll just have to see. I'll have to take a look at the game, see what it's like, because I can't remember. So first, just getting the standard build order crap out of the way. Your standard, I guess, if you want to call it Savior 3-hatch Zerg vs Terran build, it's going to be 12 hatch at your natural, 11 pool, and then there's some debate if it's 12 hatchery or 13 hatchery for your third hatchery. I don't think it makes a difference personally. If I remember, I make it at 12, but oftentimes I'm just hitting 5 SD and not even thinking, and then I'll realize, oh crap, I already made too many drones, and now I'm at 13. And I find this doesn't affect my play at all. So one of the things you need to think about that's specific to Bluestorm is it's a 2-player map with a relatively close rush distance. So any competent Terran is going to send an SCV to block your 12 hatch. There's just no way around it. I mean, I can't see a reason why any Terran would not do that. It's just such a simple thing to do, and it sets it kind of throws Zerg off balance. So you need to think about how or what style you like to play and how you're going to adapt to deal with this fast drone scout. So if you're going to play this 12, 11, 13 build, you might think that, okay, I'll send 2 drones. If he sent an SCV scout, I'll just split them up. One tries to build them at the minerals, and another will build them kind of off to the side. And because I'm building the third hatchery so quickly, I'll have dealt with the SCV by that time, and it won't be that big a deal. I can just put down my hatchery later, and I won't have lost much mining time. If you don't want to do that, you can 9 pool. If you don't want to do that, you over overpool, which is 9 overlord, 9 pool, which I don't have much experience with. How I dealt with it here is I scouted with a drone on 9, and I sent it to my cliff at the east there, kind of 3 o'clock, and then I brought it around to the middle, and after his SCV had left, I brought it back and used that to morph the natural hatchery. And that's something that'll work against most Terrans on this map, and it's typically my response to kind of a Ride of Valkyrie or Bluestorm, relatively quick rush distance 2-player map. So then how you follow up this build is once your spawning pool morphs, you're going to make as many Zerglings as you feel is necessary, or as many Zerglings as you like to make for the style you play. And then 16 gas, make another drone, so you're at 16 of 18. Then make an overlord, and that overlord will pop about, or it'll pop, you'll have to wait a bit, so you'll lose some drone time, I suppose, but it's just the most efficient way to get the build done. And then once you have 100 gas, you build a layer, and your next 100 gas goes for Zergling speed. And once your layer is started, that's exactly when you start your natural gas. And then other things other than that are just flavor. When you take your third base is up to you, and depending on how quickly he fast expands. I can see with my overlord here, it's pretty ridiculously fast expansion. So I took my third base before my layer was even done, which can work. You have to play it by ear. If I was playing someone I I knew was better than me, I wouldn't be doing this. Or if I was playing in a tournament or a game I needed to win, I'd play safer. But in this casual style of game, it's perfectly fine, and it's a fine response to seeing a fast expansion like that. And then once the layer finishes, just get a spire. And the thing that's changed kind of in recent Brood War is that you used to see people getting their spire and sitting behind 4 or 5 sunken colonies with 2 bases, 3 hatcheries, and just get mutalisks out. What we're seeing now is Zergs are getting Zergling speed with their first 100 gas after layer, and then they're getting 12 Zerglings around 22-23 supply, and using those 12 Zerglings to threaten a backstab, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. So you still need enough sunken colonies that if he decides to ignore your backstab and attack, you're not going to die to it. But you don't need enough that if he concentrates all his forces, you need to live. So what you want to do here is you want to let him get far enough that it'll take him a long time to get back to his main base to defend this backstab. But you also want to send them in close enough so that it's not worth his while to continue attacking. You don't want him attacking with this first push out, especially if you've taken a 3rd base as fast. You want him returning to the base, and typically most Terrans will be doing that. Because I mean, he gets a few firebats out, and with decent SCV micro, you're not going to be able to do much with 12 Zerglings right away. So now, if I hadn't taken that 3rd base so quickly, I would have finished my Zergling raid at 33 of 51 supply, and then I would make 9 mutalisks with just saved up larvae, and that would take me to 51 of 51. But because I've put a lot of money into bottom right in drones and whatnot, I only have enough to. I think I've got 7 mutalisks coming out. But I'm going to keep making them until I have 9 or 10, just so I have enough that they can kind of spread damage. And meanwhile, I've gone straight into a Hydralisk den and an evolution chamber for +1. So those Zerglings, the first Zerglings, your target should probably be the SCVs, but most of the time the SCVs are just going to clump up, and there will be a few Marines shooting you if they'll kind of draw the attention of the Zerglings, and you won't be able to do much. So typically I like to run around, kill any stray Marines, and then go straight for the turrets, because that helps your next phase, which is this mutalisk harass. With no turrets around, it'll just make your mutalisk harass more effective, and then you can compound it later in the game. And you don't need to be a great mutalisk microer here. You can see I haven't really killed anything at this point. I'm just kind of flying around. If you have to err on the side of keeping your mutalisks safe, rather than darting in and trying to kill groups of Marines, because while your mutalisks are alive, they're actually dealing damage in that your opponent can't move out, and he's kind of psychologically damaged because he's worrying about where are mutalisks, what are they doing. If you trade mutalisks for Marines and you don't come out way ahead in that battle, then he feels no pressure. He can move out right away, and then your next phase, which is Lurkerling, is going to be that much more behind. So err on the side, like in this case I should have been running away here with those mutalisks. Now I've only got 5, I've got 5, which is enough that I can still put on a little pressure, but it's not as good as you know, if I had 6 or 7 mutalisks still. But my lurkers are alive, or are morphing at this point, so I haven't seen him move out with my overlord yet, but I'm putting down a couple sunken colonies just at my 3rd base, because that's where I think he'll attack, and it'll just help me defend. If my lurkers don't get down there at time, it'll just help me stall until my lurkers can run down with Zergling support. And again, just bothering him here with random mutalisk micro. I can see him coming around now, so I'm going to get everything morphing and get my lurkers running down. And then after this, you're going to go straight into Hive. So it's a 3 base, 3 gas, 4 hatchery Hive build is the standard build I'm doing. I'm taking a 4th base here, which I normally wouldn't, but the only reason I'm doing that is because my economy was so large. from the expansion that I took, which was before Lair. So typically I wouldn't have taken that expansion until my mutalisks were out, or morphing at least. But because I took it so early, I found myself with an excess of minerals, and that's why I'm taking this fourth base so soon. So my Queen's Nest is down, and the Hive is going to be on its way. If you're playing any Terran with any sort of timing, you're gonna run into three attacks you need to worry about. The first one already came. It was the one where he moved out and I backstabbed him with Zerglings. The second one is coming now, but it's a little late. Typically, unless your Mutal Harass is very good, there's going to be one that comes out between your lurker, between when your lurkers are done and when your mutas have died to turrets. And that's the one we just saw here, but he was a little late. I had lurkers out at that point. But assuming he wasn't late and I didn't have lurkers out at that point, you have to decide how you want to deal with that. The first one is just as you can try to stall with mutalisks just flying around until your lurkers get up. Zerglings, threatening, backstabs, whatnot. That's typically the way I do it. Just show him that you have an army, and then once you get lurkers out, he'll typically retreat. The other way, which a lot of pro Zergs are doing it now, is delaying their lurkers and just making a big Zergling Muta army in the mid game, because Terrans are thinking, I got to get out before he gets lurkers. But to counter that, Zergs are just foregoing lurkers until they deal with that first push, and that can work too. I mean, I do that sometimes. It's just a different style. And certain opponents, certain maps, I'll do it. But I would say this is more my standard. Just get lurkers out, kind of stall, show them you have an army, and then once you have lurkers out, you can deal with it easier. If you listen to my other Zerg vs. Terran commentary, which was about a year ago, I said it always bothered me when people got to Hive and then they had Defilers coming and they decided this was an opportune time to attack, and they traded armies. And typically that would be a bad move, because Defilers, their strength grows with unit size. So the more units you have, the stronger Defilers get. Because think about it, if you trade armies with him and he has a small army, he can micro it really well, and generally Terran micro is going to be better than yours. It's just the nature of the game. So you want to have a large army, so it's hard for him to run away from your swarms, and once you get burrowed, you can still get kills. But the reason I decided to trade armies there was because I was so far ahead in economy and macro. So the thinking is, if I'm ahead in macro and unit production, then when we trade armies, I can remake my army quicker than he can make his. So I'll actually come out, even though we traded armies, I'll come out with an advantage. Whereas if we're even, we're going to be making armies at the same speed, we'll come out even. So that's a time when I would want to be saving my army if Defilers were coming in. If I was behind, then I have to do kind of something. I either have to be way better than my opponent, so be able to out-micro him, or I need to try some sneaky play, like sneak a Defiler around and get a swarm in his main, or try drops or something like that. So that's the only reason why you saw me decide to trade my army in the late mid game at that point. So I've got two evolution chambers going down now, or running now. The one carapace, the other one is always melee. Even if I'm playing Hydra Lurker, unless I'm, which is very rare, but unless I'm committing to it all game, I'll still get the melee attack, just because Zerglings with melee are devastating once they get the adrenaline upgrade. Plus, you're always going to be thinking you're going to get Ultralisk in the end game, so +1 on Ultralisk or melee upgrades on Ultralisk is obviously devastating for them as well. So now, because I'm ahead in bases, there's no real rush for me here. All I'm really looking to do is just keep breaking his push over and over and over, and then keep my eye on top left. And if I can stop him from getting top left, that'll be the end of the game. So just making sure I have everything grouped up here. I'm a little short on Scourge. That's a mistake here, and I don't have that great map right here. So just running in, lurkers come in first. The defilers are a little late. Not really that big a deal. I find with most Terrans, and you probably will as well, if you throw a swarm down, even if it's like, look at that one. That swarm was not even over anything, but most, if you're not playing kind of an upper tier Terran, they'll flee at the sight of swarm. So you want to err on the side of throwing down too many swarms as opposed to too few, because if you throw down a swarm, you're typically going to see Terran just fleeing, getting the hell out of there. Whereas if you're holding on to it for the greatest moment, you're more likely to get your defiler sniped, and you're more likely to have lost all your units by the time you decide to commit to throwing down the swarm. So another thing I said in that old commentary was that I find people transition to Ultralisk too early. I think you need to well, what you see people doing is they'll rush to Lurker Defiler Zergling, and they'll put in their first Defiler, it'll get shut down, and then that's it. You don't see Defilers from them, it's just Ultralisk. I think that doesn't work that well, because in the transition to to getting your Ultralisk carapace, Terran can kind of counter push once he breaks your first swarm, and that's kind of a very dangerous time for Zerg unless they were already quite a bit ahead in the game. So I think you need to kind of get your Ultralisk Cavern, continue with Defiler, Lurker, Zergling, and just sprinkle in Ultralisk while you're waiting for the carapace upgrade. And then once you have carapace and you've got movement coming, you can then you can start just going Ultraling. And this is kind of a cute trick. It didn't work here because he had more tank siege there. But if there's a single tank, or even a bunch of tanks, shooting at lurkers under swarm, typically they'll only be shooting at one of them. And if you take a little time and see which one it's shooting at, and say you have 4 or 5 other lurkers, just grab those lurkers, unburrow them, keep the one that's getting shot burrowed, and just run the other lurkers right up. So most of the time, Terran's not even watching, and you just get those lurkers there, and if you can target his tanks, you can kill all his tanks before they get on siege, or you can kill his army. So I mean, I've broken his push so many times that I'm just transitioning to Ultralisk here. As I said, carapace is almost done, so I'm going exclusively Ultralisk. There's not much more to say about this game. If it had to continue, I would maybe think about securing top with a Nidus Canal at 12 o'clock. But I'm just going to do this little kind of sneaky run around with lurkers, because another factor in StarCraft is kind of concentration. So if you think about how much time or effort it took for me to put that lurker there, it's like 0. Think about how much effort it takes him. If he's already pushing his army out, he's got to move all his SCVs, he's got to get his army set up to flank, or get a vessel in position to irradiate. So it's really annoying. So those are the kind of things you want to be taking advantage of. And it can also build kind of a psychological edge, of frustration edge. So yeah, that's going to be the end of this game. I'm just going to kind of finish him off with Ultras.